When does the greed stop? And, you know, it's basically every aspect of American life now has been corrupted by greed. And maybe you can add to this list, but, you know, the whole point of government, the reason why governments are instituted among men, right, is to protect the rights of individuals from, and society as a whole, from predators, from, you know, predatory people, predatory institutions. We used to enforce laws that protected our small businesses. We used to have a small business landscape across America. You know, I remember, you know, as a young person walking around in Lansing or East Lansing or any town. I mean, I traveled all over the country, hitchhiked out to San Francisco in '68. You would visit a small town or any town, and you knew where you were. It was the Lansing Bank and the, you know, the Jacobson's Furniture Store and Johnson's Five and Dime and the local bookstore, the Book Nook Books. And they've all been replaced by national chains, right? Now it's Barnes and Noble or Olive Garden or Marriott, and that's it, you know, and Wells Fargo or Chase. These you know, we passed laws against this, and Reagan stopped enforcing them. In 1983, Reagan explicitly stopped enforcing our antitrust laws. No president since then, until Joe Biden just 2 weeks ago issued an executive order saying, let's start enforcing these laws again. Nobody had been enforcing them. We once enforced laws that said if a church or a religious leader was preaching politics in the pulpit, they would lose their tax-exempt status. But TV and radio turned a bunch of preachers into millionaires, and the greedy ones among them reached out to politicians and said, hey, let's cut a deal. In fact, the broker for that deal back in the 1980s was the Christian advisor to the Reagan administration and the Reagan-Bush campaigns, a fellow by the name of George W. Bush. And he created this mind meld between these right-wing preachers and the Republican Party that lasts to this day. And as a result, because of this corruption of our churches by politics, exactly as James Madison predicted, churches in America are in free fall, and it's not just because of COVID, because Americans have become cynical about religion. And people like Pat Robertson and Franklin Graham are fabulously rich beyond your imaginings. Pat Robertson is a billionaire. We have enforced laws. We once enforced laws that required rich people and profitable corporations to pay their fair share of taxes, so that average working people's taxes were low. And I'm going to get into a story that really backs this up in just a minute. But you know, basically, greedy people and their businesses they ran bought a bunch of politicians, eventually bought the entire Republican Party and a mansion cinema little piece of or good-sized piece, actually, the Democratic Party, and thus drilled literally thousands of holes into our tax code, so that billionaires now pay between 1% and 3%, the equivalent of income taxes, on their wealth. And, you know, you and I are paying 30%, 20, 30%, whatever it may be. And the GOP now is fighting appropriating money to pay auditors with the IRS to catch these billionaire tax cheats and big corporations. We once enforced our laws that required a semblance of fidelity among our courts to the Congress that wrote those laws. We once had courts that enforced those laws. Now we've got courts that are packed with right-wing stooges who have been put there by nonprofits funded by billionaires, specifically to act in the interests of the billionaires, telling us that, you know, corporations are people and money is speech, and no, there's no race problem in the United States, and if states want to pass laws again, I mean, it just goes on and on. We once had a workforce that was largely protected by democracy in the workplace, something that we call unions. Now we've got a majority of the states that have gone to right to work for less laws. And unionization is at 6% in the private sector in America. And by the way, when I was researching this topic for this rant that I was writing yesterday afternoon, and you Google right to work, and every single, the first 20, 30 hits that you get are all right-wing sites talking about unions are bad, unions are predatory, right to work means you don't be forced, you know, blah-de, blah-de, blah. It's insane. We once had free or nearly free college and trade school for all Americans who wanted it. And then Reagan ended free college in California as the governor. And then he became president and basically ended free college all across the United States. And now you've got an entire generation so crushed by debt, by student loan debt, that they can't afford to buy a house, start a family, have children, start a small business. This is something, by the way, that is not happening in any other developed country in the world. No other developed country in the world has an entire generation with $1.5 trillion in debt from just going to damn college or trade school. We once had laws requiring hospitals and health insurance companies to be nonprofits. I remember back in the early 70s, I was running a company in Michigan. We had an herbal tea company and other potpourris and smoking mixtures and all kinds of stuff. It was called Woodley Herber. And I was paying, at my recollection, and I'm pretty sure I'm pretty clear about this, we were paying $30 per month per person for full comprehensive Blue Cross Blue Shield health insurance. Because Blue Cross Blue Shield in Michigan was nonprofit, and all three hospitals in Lansing, St. Lawrence, Sparrow, and Ingham Medical were all nonprofit. And Nixon and Reagan worked to blow those laws up, and now $30 won't even cover the copay to get your temperature taken at your doctor's office. We once had an election system where people were only removed from the voting rolls if they died or if they moved out of state. Now you've got a situation where, Jeb Bush removed 94,000 African Americans from the voting rolls just in time for his brother's election in 2000, which is how George won Florida. And Brian Kemp purged 340,134 mostly African Americans from the voting rolls so that he could beat Stacey Abrams by 55,000 votes in 2018. And now you've got 17 states that have passed laws, 28 laws, making this entirely legal. The Apostle Paul wrote to his follower Timothy that they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, for the love of money is the root of all evil. But today, the love of money is celebrated. Billionaires are our new rock stars, our astronauts. Tax dodging means you're smart. And people crushed by debt and struggling to get by without decent wages and benefits are mocked as losers and takers. Our government has been corrupted by big money. There is one piece of legislation in Congress right now that would take a bite out of that would offer public funding and financing of elections and would reduce the power of big money, dark money in our elections. And that's the For the People Act, which is being filibustered right now by Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, and maybe a few others. This is what Ted Kennedy had to say about this situation. He was talking specifically, they were trying to raise the minimum wage from $5.50 an hour to $7.25 an hour. And this is what he said on the floor of the United States Senate. Come on, you.
$240 billion in tax breaks for corporations, $36 billion in tax breaks for small businesses, increase in productivity, 42% over the last 10 years. But do you think there's any increase in the minimum wage? No. What is the price? We ask the other side. What is the price that you want from these working men and women? What cost? How much more do we have to give to the private sector and to business? How many $billion more are you asking? Are you requiring? When does the greed stop?
There you go. Ted Kennedy, the liberal lion of the Senate.